Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Emanuele Quintarelli. I'm the Social Business and Future Work Director in EY, and I spent my entire working life helping individuals, human beings, find a more fulfilling place within organizations, but also helping organizations to become the change agents of a more collaborative future. And the next 18 minutes or so, I'll try to share a few ideas, some stories, but also some challenges that are shaping the future of our organizations. So let's get started. God is dead, Marx is dead, and I'm not doing good either. That sentence has been associated with Woody Allen, but if our organizations could talk, that's exactly what they would say. While most European countries have been recovering from the 2008 crisis, we still see populism, the Brexit, protectionism, a slower labor productivity growth rates. In a sense, we are still facing disruption. And when we find the issues, it's even too easy to look at the situation at hand and potentially losing sight of some deeper and more worrying trends. So let me share some numbers that unfortunately cast a glooming shadow on the future of our organizations. The first one comes from a study done by our competitors, John Hagel from the Center for the Edge of Deloitte. In 2010, John and his team studied the entire US economy for 40 years. And what they have found is that competitive intensity has been more than doubling for the entire market in 40 years, thanks to technological development. At the same time, labor productivity has doubled, and even the topple rate, the frequency with which leaders lose their position under the attack of competitors, has been growing. What has not been growing is the other line, is the return on assets. Actually, it fell to 75% across the market in 40 years, meaning that a key indicator of the value generated by organizations for their shareholders, people putting money on the organization, fell to 1/4 of what was 40 years before. The second trend comes from an Insight study. If you look at the life expectancy of Standard & Poor's 500 organizations, some of the largest, most powerful organizations in the world, well, it was 61 years in 1958. It became 35 years in 1980. It's 18 years now, and at this pace, 75% of the Standard & Poor's 500 will just be disappeared from the market by 2027. Meaning that if you are not able to keep up with the market, if you are not able to creatively disrupt yourselves, well, the market will disrupt you. And unfortunately, this is easier said than done. What about work? In the past, when you were looking for a safe job, you were going to large traditional organizations, a bank, a telco, a government institution. In the last 2 decades, the net number of new jobs created by traditional organizations older than 1 year, has been negative. So more jobs have been destroyed than created, with only one exception: ICT and high-tech startups. Those small companies have been virtually responsible for all job creation, but also for protecting those jobs, at least for the first 5 years. And finally, how are those that still have a job doing? Not well indeed, according to Gallup. If only 13% of the global working population is engaged, meaning they have an emotional tie, the willingness to go the extra mile, the willingness to bring their energy, their passion to work. 87% is not, and actually 24% is actively disengaged, meaning that they are trying to sabotage what their peers and their organizations are doing. Such a huge waste of our energy, but also our life. So, taken all together, we are not into a crisis. We are into a new world, a sort of the Pandora, you know, the alien home of the movie Avatar. And if you have seen the movie, you know very well that you better run fast if you don't want to get eaten by the monster running after you. And that's exactly the time in which we are in the market. This is the time for many organizations to rethink their position, to rethink their capabilities, and to switch gears. So I would suggest that there are 4 challenges for doing that. The first challenge is knowledge. We spent the last few decades squeezing the last drop out of transactional processes, and yet we didn't learn how to manage knowledge. If you look at the numbers, a 900% gap still remains between leaders and laggards in knowledge-intensive markets. Wow. So we don't know how to manage knowledge. And the impact of that is quite big. Most employees are not even able to find a document in the internet. And if you work in a large organization, well, you know that already. And just go on Google, on the internet, billions of documents, and you can find information. 50% of collaborative work is redundant, if not entirely wasted. And 1/4 of our time, 1/4 of our week is spending just searching for information and usually reinventing information with a cost of $6 million every 1,000 employees. If your company is big, well, you're spending lots of money on that. The second challenge is efficiency in exponential times. When a big organization thinks about efficiency, it thinks about a process. A process is a way to anticipate a need and to allocate the resources in time. Or, as Clay Shirky would say, a process is an embedded reaction to a prior stupidity. In other terms, you learn by your own mistakes. Up to the point in which we spend 95% of IT budgets on processes to reduce costs. So the question is, what happens when reality is so complex or so quick that there is no time or no possibility to build a process? And just think about the number of emails, the number of meetings, the number of phone calls you get. Those are not processes, those are exceptions to processes. And that's where we spend most of our time and most of our energy. So the solution to this problem is not more processes, it's not better processes, it's designing organizations that are meant for uncertainty, lack of linearity, and lack of predictability, an entirely different DNA for an organization. The third challenge is innovation. Just ask any CEO about our top priorities, and innovation will pop up first or second. Product innovation, customer experience innovation, service innovation, you name it. The thing is that you cannot go back to your office and ask your guys to come up with 1 billion ideas. It doesn't work. Innovation cannot be imposed, cannot be mandated. And still, you can build an environment that fosters innovation through contamination, through creativity, through failure, by pushing decision-making at the edges of the organization, by making knowledge workers, very expensive people, the change agents, and also using this autonomy, this freedom, to engage them. Because we have seen that engagement is only at 13%. But the thing is that the lack of engagement is very expensive for organizations. You can see the numbers. And when you talk to organizations about this, especially HR, they will tell you, yes, but my employees are naturally disengaged. It's like, they are born like that. And research demonstrates that's not true. The lack of engagement is systematically due to bad management and bad leadership. It's because your boss doesn't care about you, because you don't have a career path, because the organization is not innovative, because it's not treating customers right. All of these things are due to management and to leadership. So when we look at these 4 challenges, we see the entire market struggling with that. And still, there is a bunch of organizations that cracked the code, that started to do things in a different way. So again, let me share a few stories. The first one is called Valve. Valve is a company that does video games. 300 people, $3.5 billion. The interesting thing about the company is that there is no boss. There is no manager. Every desk has wheels. So you can bring your desk, you can move it, and you can join the team you want to work with. And that team will evaluate you, not your boss. The only kind of leadership they have is servant leadership, meaning that the leader is the one removing obstacles, not the one telling you what to do. In this chaotic environment, hiring is probably the most important process, because you don't hire for coding skills, you hire for the cultural fit within the organization. So a totally different look at the HR processes. And by the way, the manual is online, so you can read all of that. But you may say, okay, these guys are doing video games, easy. So let's look at different company. GiveGuff is a network operator, like O2 or Vodafone. The thing is that they are a community instead of a company. They have no customer service. They have no sales force. They have no product innovation team. All of those functions are run by customers, or members, as they call it. GiveGuff means members, mutual giving between members. So when you have an issue, you don't call the contact center. You go online, you go in the forum, and you get an answer in 90 seconds every day and night of the year. And thanks to this ability of having a community, the community also builds products, also generates word of mouth on products, and they get kudos back. Kudos are points that you can redeem in traffic, in money, or give to charity. Thanks to this, the Net Promoter Score of GiveGuff is quite as high as the one of Google and Apple. But again, these guys are doing technology. So let's look at those guys that do vegetables and oranges and apples, something more traditional. Whole Foods Market has been bought by Amazon for $14 billion. The most profitable market chain in the US, 90,000 people. And again, there are two interesting points about them. The first one is that they have a purpose. The purpose is not making money. The purpose is fighting food chain industrialization through organic, sustainable, and tasty food. But the other interesting aspect is how they are organized. Every shop, every local team has full autonomy. It's a different profit and loss entity, meaning that they can decide the product, they can decide the pricing, they can decide the marketing, they can decide who to hire. So on one side, you have full autonomy. On the other side, you have full accountability, meaning that if you have hired the wrong guy, at the end of the month, it will be your salary to be impacted.
Wow.
And you start thinking about the implication of freedom, right? And to make it easier, they built total transparency into the model. Every number, incomes, operating and financial data, is gamified into the internet, meaning that you can see what others are doing, you can learn from their failures, you can learn from their successes to accelerate failure and to accelerate learning. Managers' income is capped, and most of the stock options goes to employees. Quite different from many organizations you can think of. The last example I want to share is from a company you probably know very well, Lego. So Lego is not selling only bricks to kids or moms, but also to adults that have a salary to spend on it. So a few years ago, they came up with the idea of Lego Cuso, or Lego Ideas now. It's a community in which you can bring your own ideas for bricks. When your idea gets 10,000 votes, it goes up for feasibility. If Lego says yes, your name is on the box, and you get 1% of the global sales revenues from your idea. Meaning that you are no longer a customer, you are a co-creator, you are a partner, you are building product innovation with the company, and of course you are also doing word of mouth with the company if that's your Lego set. So these are just 4 examples of hundreds of organizations that are demonstrating that a different way is possible. And there are now a long list of approaches. You may have heard about holacracy, the self-management human operating system, equacy, a flatter version of holacracy, sociocracy from which holacracy took it, and beyond budgeting, and B Corps, and the same co-institute, and Word Blue for organizational democracy. It's a long, long list. And that's good, because after 100 years of scientific management, we are starting to see something different. The thing is, how can you choose as an organization? How you can understand what's best for you, how you can split these models in something that you can test tomorrow morning. What I've done in the last few months is really trying to build a map for it. So I tried to decompose the different models and to look at the different aspects that each model is trying to suggest. I won't get into the detail of all the models, but you can find more on my blog. But very briefly, what we are seeing is that people are not engaged by money. They're engaged by meaning. What we are seeing is that strategy is becoming dynamic. Value creation is happening beyond the boundaries of the organization in an ecosystem. Power is being distributed to the edges of the organization, and planning is a thing of the past. We are starting to adapt, to iterate, to experiment. At the team level, we are breaking down silos. We are letting the information flow. We are bringing flatter teams. We are managing people not through command and control, but through values. And we are letting people pick their own work, not telling them what to do. And finally, at the individual level, we are pushing on intrinsic motivation, self-motivation. We are letting people be treated as human beings, not as human resources. We are not resources, we are human beings, and we want to be treated equally. We want to bring ourselves to the job, not just the suit, but our personality. And finally, we want to develop our mastery. We want our organization to help us do that. And finally, we want to be owners of the organization, not employees of the organization, and to work from anytime, anywhere. So this map is really the idea of using some of the ingredients, only some ingredients. It's quite difficult to have all of the ingredients. No organization in the world is doing all of this. But to start experimenting with 1, 2, 3 of those ingredients and trying to learn and trying to build more and trying to connect the dots. So going at the closure of my presentation, I think that it's clear that the pace of change is just going to accelerate. There is no turning back. And the thing is that every single change management project that we have seen so far is no longer a good solution for this world that I'm describing. The only solution is building adaptive, fluid organizations. So it's building a different kind of organization, and if we really believe, and I hope you believe that as well, that organizations are made by human beings, the only solution to build adaptive organizations is to bring human back at the core of the business, is designing organizations that can really leverage the power, the creativity, the engagement, the willingness, the decision-making, the visibility, the diversity of our people. And the question for you and for myself is, who is going to do that, if not people working in HR? I know that we will have other talks today about this, but this is not what I'm seeing. So most HR people are not doing this, are not fighting to make the world a better place one organization at a time, are not fighting to have people back at the center of the business. To me, this is the biggest challenge that we will have in the next 10, probably 20 years. Thank you so much.